And it led to the conversation with, we talked about the fraternities and things like that. And my argument was, hey, look, people are like, I'm not bowing to no God. I'm not bowing to no Greek, no false God. I'm like, but you accepted the perks. All right. So here's the thing. I'm Nigerian. My parents are Nigerian. When people that were not believers, or some people that were believers, they wanted children or stuff like that, they wanted some type of riches, they'll go to see witch doctors. They'll go to see these evil people. Oshun, all those people that out the river, they'll go to the river, pray to, they won't even pray. The witch doctor prays to the river person. They give them a few dollars, and then the person makes them have a baby. That person that walks away with the baby will say, I swear I never bowed down to nobody.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even say no words. I just gave him a few dollars and he gave me the baby. But you accepted the benefits.
He accepted the baby.
And when Satan tempted Jesus, even if Jesus never bowed his head, if he accepted the perks that the enemy offered,
mm-hmm.
it's as good as worship.
Yep.
That's fighting.
Yeah. Yeah. And, even with that, the Nigerian, the river and the Mami Wata and all of that.
Look,
I have a whole video about it. That's the Truth Behind Hip Hop Part 13. I talked about the whole thing, the twins, I talked about it all. Twin spirit, the water spirits, the women, all of that. But yeah, so what they don't realize is going to them for fertility, but they've already been to you to lock your womb. See, they locked your womb. You went to them to have your womb released. That's why you couldn't conceive.
I'm done.
Yeah.
They created the problem and became your solution.
That's it. Yep. That's what Mami Wata does. That's her whole, Beyonce had to go to her to get her womb unlocked and became her. Well, became an embodiment of her to lead everyone else into it. Man, they did Yoruba spells and stuff in the streets during the anarchy and the uprising during the pandemic. That's what they were doing. The 3 women that were over BLM, they're lesbian witches. And they were doing Yoruba ceremonies in the streets. And that's what brought the unrest to our community. This was the unleashing. That couldn't have happened if hip hop hadn't laid the foundation. Couldn't have happened. That's why God was warning the church back, when I was doing this message. If y'all open the door to Yoruba and you open the door to Canaanite spirits, you open the door to the spirits that got the world destroyed. You open the door to Egyptian. You're opening the door to the cursed ones. God cursed them. Isaiah 19, he cursed those people for false God worship. He cursed them for enslaving his people. They were cursed. And all of those curses, I listed in my part 14, I think, the Truth Behind Hip Hop. I list the whole curse of Isaiah 19. All those things have manifested in American culture now. Every one of those curses. Because if they open the door, Africa Bambaataa goes and gets it from that region, brings it here. It starts spreading, and then it finally just opens up. And then we have 2020 and 2021 where anarchy and unrest and all of that came. And now you see a young black girl. She's into witchcraft. Like common. Young black boy. He looks like a witch doctor. That's what that's what all that is. That's from the Curse of Africa. You could go find all of those hairstyles and everything in the Bushmen. They shape their hair like animals that they worship. All of that's here. It's all here, Zeke. It all came. It just came because the church did not take a stand. And God warned them, and they didn't take a stand.
That was probably one of the best interviews I've seen in a long, long time between, I believe his name is Zeke and G. Craig Lewis on We Must Talk. I believe the the channel. That's what it's called. I'll put the link to the entire video in the description. But listening to that kind of reinforced and reaffirmed what I've been saying for a while, that they're looking to use this African spirituality to drive out the real Jesus out of the black community. And they're looking to, when I say they, I mean the demonic activity, the spirits that are operating through these so-called leaders in the black community, the church plants, that black triumvirate that wants to keep black people in a permanent state of victimhood. And they want to take people away from the real Jesus and drive the real Jesus out of the black community. And by the way, this video is sponsored by Augusta Precious Metals. If you want to take ownership and be a good steward over what God has blessed you with when it comes to your retirement portfolio, I strongly encourage you to go to thebiblicalconservative.com/gold or click on the link in the description. But it's because of these so-called leaders in the black community that all these things have come in. Yes, hip hop has come in, but the leaders, the church leaders, the pastors, instead of them doing something about it, instead of them standing up on biblical grounds and biblical values and fighting back and saying, no, we're not going to allow this filth, we're not going to allow this degeneracy to come into our community, they opened the door to it. They opened the door and welcomed it. And I was wondering, how can this be? How can a person who names the name of Christ, who claims to be a mouthpiece of Jesus, how can they allow this degeneracy, this demonic spirit to come in and proliferate throughout the community? But then I started doing some research on the so-called civil rights leaders, and it hit me. Once you make a pledge to that demon, to that entity, regardless of what fraternity, or if you become a Mason, a Prince Hall Freemason, you are essentially operating in the kingdom of darkness. I know that's a tough statement, but you are essentially, because hear these passages here. Jesus said this in Matthew 6:24. No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. You have to understand something. When you take the benefits of this system, when you take the benefits of what the enemy offers you, and benefits I mean by having your name in lights, by becoming famous, by being very, very prominent as a civil rights leader, by profiting off of the ignorance of the people in your community, you are worshiping mammon, because those are the benefits that come from you selling out your Christianity for popularity and fame in this system. And a lot of these church plant pastors have done that. And here's another one. Mark 3, starting at verse 23. So he called them to himself and said to them in parables, how can Satan cast out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan has risen up against himself and is divided, he cannot stand, but has an end. You see what Jesus said right there? Jesus said that Satan has a kingdom. He has a kingdom. He has a hierarchy. He has a structure. He is organized. He is the God of this world. He is the one that runs this world's system. So if a person is partaking of the extravagances of this world system, I'm not saying you can't enjoy things. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying if you have taken the goods, the mammon that is offered by this world system by selling yourself out, you've essentially exchanged your kingdom. You're not operating in the kingdom of darkness. Once again, let me reiterate. I'm not talking about God blessing you his way, biblical prosperity. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who have made an allegiance to these black Greek letter organizations or Prince Hall Freemasons. And so therefore, they unknowingly have bent the knee to demonic entities and are now receiving the goods from that. Then in Ephesians 6:12, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. There are principalities involved with these black Greek letter organizations and Prince Hall Freemasonry, all these Masons. They're entities, demonic entities. And the reason why these black Greek letter organizations, these Freemasons, these civil rights leaders are constantly pushing black liberation theology and are constantly pushing the agenda of racism, the agenda of oppression, the agenda of victimization is because they can't preach the true gospel because they are operating under the auspices of the kingdom of darkness. Because when you join yourself to these Greek letter organizations, you have essentially exchanged kingdoms. And it's interesting that every single prominent civil rights leader has been a part of either a black Greek letter organization or Prince Hall Freemasonry. Because that is the access point to elevate your profile to prominence. I'm not saying these people did it knowingly, but unknowingly, because they had that entry point of either being a Prince Hall Freemason or being a member of the black Greek letter organizations. Therefore, they have proven themselves. They have sacrificed their allegiance to Christ and have pledged allegiance to a demonic entity. Case in point, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was an A Phi A. He was an Alpha. And you have to understand something. When you crossing has so much of a hidden connotation that people don't know about. A lot of people think you just crossing to demonstrate you went from not being a member of the fraternity to being a member of fraternity, and you are outwardly showing it. But you're also crossing over from not being a part of the kingdom of darkness to being the kingdom of darkness. You're crossing over from not being affiliated or allegiant or having your allegiance to that demonic entity to demonstrating to the world that you have your allegiance to that demonic entity. And I really don't think people understand it. I really don't. People don't know what they're getting themselves into when they do this stuff. So Dr. King was an alpha. Civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is undoubtedly one of the most renowned alphas of all time. Many know that King was an alpha, but few have seen pictures of what he looked like as a young member of the fraternity. Dr. King became a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity in 1952. He crossed through the Sigma chapter, Boston Metro chapter of the Alpha Phi Alpha as a young graduate student at Boston University, where he was working on his doctorate of philosophy. There he is right there. Right here. Bottom right. Bottom right. There's Dr. King right there. Interesting, right? And here he is receiving an Alpha Award. But Dr. King is not the only one. Now, this one is someone I'm very, very familiar with. A lot of people may not know who this man is, but this is Medgar Evers. He was a civil rights activist, and he was very prominent in Mississippi. Matter of fact, he was assassinated before Dr. King was assassinated. He was a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. You're starting to see the correlation between these quote-unquote civil rights leaders. That's why I call them the Black Bougie Elite, the talented 10th, as W.E.B. Du Bois called them. You're starting to see the correlation between these black Greek letter organizations, the Prince Hall Freemasonry, and this one right here. I mean, you got a whole list of people that are civil rights activists that are part of Omega Psi Phi. Jesse Jackson. Interesting. Jesse Jackson is a member of Omega Psi Phi. You know who Jesse Jackson is. He took on the reins after Dr. King was assassinated. Keep hope alive. Yeah, Rainbow Push Coalition. And here's somebody else that you may not know about. This man right here, Bayard Rustin. He was a close confidant of Dr. King. He helped to give Dr. King that nonviolent approach when it came to the civil rights movement. He organized Freedom Rides, and he wasn't organized for the March on Washington. He was also gay or bisexual. Look at all these people. Vernon Jordan. He was very close to Bill Clinton. He was a former executive director of the National Urban League. You starting to see a trend here? Now, this next one, he's not a member of a Black Greek letter organization because he didn't go to college, but he is a Freemason. Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton was made a Mason by the most worshipful past Grand Master Solomon Wallace. Wow. Look at that. I just want you to see that. Are you starting to see the connection between these people that are your so-called leaders in the Black community and Freemasonry and these Black Greek letter organizations? Here's another one. Ben Crump. He's also part of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. He became a member of Omega Psi Phi in 1988. And then, of course, we get to the last one I'm going to talk about today, Jamal Bryant.
In the post-antebellum South, the state had been flipped blue, and there are some principalities that were not prepared for a black man and a Jewish man to go to Senate at the exact same time. So they figured that they would delude us by picking somebody who they thought would in fact represent us better with a football than with a degree in philosophy. They thought we were so slow, that we were so stupid, that we would elect the lowest caricature of a stereotypical broken black man as opposed to somebody who is educated and erudite and focused. Y'all ain't ready for me today. Since Herschel Walker was 16 years old, white men been telling him what to do, telling him what school to go to, where to live, where to eat, where to buy a house, where to run, where to sit down, where to sleep, where to pay for abortions, where to buy a gun. And you think they not gonna tell him how to vote? In 2022, we don't need a walker, we need a runner. We need somebody who gonna run and tell the truth about January 6th. We need somebody who gonna run and push for the cancellation of student loan debts. We need somebody who gonna run and make the former president respond to a subpoena. We don't need a walker. We need somebody who will be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding, knowing that your labor is not in vain. Georgia, I need you to know the slave Negroes y'all are used to don't live here no more. We can think for ourselves, function for ourselves, and vote for ourselves. Why? Because we don't need a walker.
And there are many more I can show you. I may do a part 2 on this. But I want to show you the connection. You see the through line. It's either a Freemason or a member of the Black Greek letter organization that elevates these prominent civil rights leaders into the national conversation. And now Jamal Bryant is the latest one. He's trying to pick up that mantle. That's why he's out here trying to boycott Dollar General and pushing a Target fast and preaching like he preaches in the pulpit every Sunday. Because they cannot preach the gospel of Jesus Christ because their allegiance is to these entities in the Masonry and in these Black Greek letter organizations. That is the connection. And the whole point of it is to make the people that listen to them victims. Because they want to keep you in a permanent state of victimhood and have you adopt these African spirituality stuff, have you adopt the fake Jesus as preached in these pulpits. They cannot preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's why they preach this Black liberation theology stuff. Let me know what you think in the comments. We're not victims. We are empowered for greatness.